Welcome to Sports CTO Talks. In this series, we will be connecting with industry leaders from the sports and technology domain. We will guide you through the minds of industry leaders and who are shaping the future of sports and technology. We will dive deep into discussions from AI to cloud, from cybersecurity to sustainability. If it is technology, we are talking about it. Today, we have a very interesting guest and a very interesting topic to cover. Today, we have with us Mr. Mark Antal. He is a founder and CEO of Staked AI. They are creating the Amazon Alexa for sports, a sports specific voice AI platform delivering conversational podcast style content that drives fan engagement through personalized AI driven storytelling. With nearly a decade in AI and 15 years in corporate strategy and consulting, Mark brings deep expertise to the intersection of technology, media, and sports. A Dartmouth graduate and a Cleveland native, now based in Los Angeles. He is revolutionizing how sports organizations connect with fans through AI driven storytelling and conversations. Staked AI is a B2B voice AI platform that enables sports media, fantasy, and betting companies to create podcast style audio 100x faster and at a fraction of cost versus the status quo. With affiliate content deployed in 4 sports books and delivering top decile user engagement and top 20% better conversion rates were raising capital to allow them to scale the platform to support mass personalization. I have a lot of more things to say, but we welcome you, Mark, to the podcast today.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
So, like today, Mark would be talking, why voice of AI is the future of sports fan engagement. And Mark, my first question to you is like, how do you define the voice AI? And, if you could give us a context in the point of sports fan engagement from the fan engagement point.
Sure. Yeah, I'd say that there's two sort of sides of that coin. There's the content creation, where you use AI voice platforms to create audio content that could be consumed in the same way that we consume podcasts. It could be consumed live as a broadcast color commentary on a sports game. And the other side of that coin is conversational AI, where the fan is actually engaged in the conversation and it becomes a two-way back and forth. I think both are incredibly powerful. And I think that, it's sort of, I think about, how the dominoes align. I think it all starts with using voice AI to create content that gets pushed out. And then as the conversational AI technology scales, allowing users to engage live in the broadcast, in the podcast, in the analysis, in the commentary. Because, part of my thesis is that sports is just a conversational product, right? There's a reason that there's two commentators for every game, two hosts or two people on every podcast. And there's a reason why it's more fun to watch a game with your buddy sitting on the couch than in a room by yourself. So we now have the technology to allow any fan to consume personalized conversational content for what we all love most, which is sports.
Okay. So, like, what makes this voice AI such a powerful tool in enhancing the fan experience and, comparing it with the traditional digital interaction?
Yeah. So I think number one, there's been a huge technological breakthrough in the past 6 months in terms of the quality of AI voice models. We've all called a 1-800 number and talked to an AI voice or a robot voice, and that's not a good experience. It's not a media experience. But in the past 6 months, the quality of the audio models have gotten to a point where it is what I would call emotionally intelligent. Not only can these AI voices communicate concepts in a way that is emotionally relevant and resonant with listeners, with fans, in the conversational side of things, we can also understand the emotionality of the speaker. So when a fan is speaking, when someone else is speaking, you can measure are they frustrated, angry, sad, happy, delighted, joyful, and that allows us to engage in a conversation. And I believe conversations are three-dimensional. right? When you're consuming text or video, you have to be sitting there looking at a screen. What AI audio allows us to do is to consume sports media while we're walking our dogs, while we're making dinner. And I believe the power of that three-dimensionality allows us to engage whenever we want. It's not only when we are stationary. Well, don't watch a game while you're driving your car, but some people do. But with audio, you can. You can listen to the radio while you're paying attention to something else. So I think that that's a really powerful driver of fan engagement, right? I think that all revenue is a derivative of attention. And in sports, attention is a derivative of emotion. And now that we have these emotionally intelligent models that folks can engage with whenever they want, it creates an opportunity to maximize revenue, whether you are a team, a league, a broadcaster, a sponsor, a sports betting app, a fantasy app, or a player who launched a podcast to connect directly with their fans.
Okay. So like when you're talking about, so many people involved in this, so I just want to understand how sports teams or leagues or coaches can leverage the voice AI to create an immersive fan experience and overall, how can
Yeah.
that happen?
So for us, our focus right now is we create podcast style content around topics that are time sensitive and high value. So I don't think that voice AI is going to replace Pat McAfee or the brilliant minds at ESPN and all of the other sports broadcasting networks. But there are topics that happen in real time and the information goes stale quickly. So if you think about like a sports betting pregame content, right? A sports betting analytics company might analyze the markets the day, that when the lines come out, and then when the game starts, all that content becomes irrelevant. So if it takes them, 2, 3 hours to do the analysis and record content, that's 2, 3 hours that content's not driving engagement and not driving value for their sportsbook partners. So what we do is we can ingest that data and create a 2 to 5 minute podcast in a matter of seconds that then puts all of that time that the humans would have had to spend creating that content, puts that back into the market where consumers can engage with it and it can create value. And it allows content creators to focus on the really high value stuff that has a longer shelf life, where they can see more ROI on their investment of time and energy. So game day content is a big focus for us. I also think that you think about other high value situations. Think about a season ticket holder who misses a game, sending them a personalized recap of the game from the vantage point of their seats to keep that affinity so that it maximizes the likelihood that they renew their season ticket, license for the next year. That doing that in the voice of their favorite player, right? Like that's something that scale, it would be a challenge to do using humans. So again, it's not about taking away the voice of human creators. It's about applying the conversational medium of engagement to situations where scale and time are limitations.
So like as you were sharing a example, can you share a few more real world examples where voice AI has successfully enhanced fan engagement?
Sure. There's a company. So we actually just were featured in a newsletter called John Wall Street, along with two other voice AI companies in the sports space. One of them is called Cam AI, and they do translation. So if you think about like the NFL, it's a very mature league here in the US, and they want to grow. And so they've started doing games in Germany, in Brazil, and Mexico in order to drive growth. What Cam AI does is they translate the broadcast into 120 different languages. So if you think about growth, now there's 120 different countries that can consume that content, um, you know, using the live broadcast, and that gives distribution through the native language of you know people who love sports who may otherwise not have had access to commentary for the NFL in their native language. So that's one example. Something that we're doing is we're working with sports books. Our content is integrated into 4 sports books. Not recommending, but making folks aware of bets that are available to place that they might enjoy, and telling them the story of this player is coming back from injury and it's a great comeback story. you could bet on them to do well, click the button below. And we found since we launched over Super Bowl weekend, so February 13th, I believe was the date. In the 6 weeks since then, we've become a top decile content creator. So top decile among all the creators in the sports books at driving folks to actually click the bet and place the bet and engage with the sports book. We're also in the top decile of followed creator accounts. So what does that tell me? Fans like the content, right? They're following it in order to hear more of it, and it creates value for the B2B partner. So that's just two use cases. I think that I wouldn't be building this company if I thought there wasn't a whole ton of other future use cases as the years unfold. But those I think are two exciting starting points.
Absolutely. So, when you were saying, discussing this, how can voice AIs personalize fan interaction compared to other AI-driven solutions or other AI-driven tools? Like, what is the differentiating factor?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of AI text solutions out there. I think it's hard to differentiate text. With voice, you can literally clone the voice of a media personality. So, like, say we were working with somebody like ESPN, and through partnership, we clone Pat McAfee's voice. And then Pat McAfee, instead of answering three fan call-in questions per hour of his show, could answer all of them, right? So that like that's one thing where I think there's a lot more power in voice than there is in text because it can differentiate and really, they use the term brand voice, right? And we've used that for decades to refer to how you write about content, how you write about things. Now we can literally have a voice, an audible voice that is part of the brand. And I think, humans have been communicating verbally for 200,000 years, right? We only started writing, a couple thousand years ago. We only started having video 200, 150 years ago. And so being able to now have the technology to scale voice, which I think is the most, unless you're looking at someone, right? 90% of communication is nonverbal. But if you're not in the same room as someone, voice is the most natural way to communicate. So I think that that's why it's so powerful and differentiated from other AI technology.
So, how can this enhance the in-stadium experience for everyone, including the fans, the coaches, the team? How can that play a role?
Yeah. So there are some companies that are working on like voice assistants to help you navigate the stadium. Where's the closest restroom? I'd like to get a chicken sandwich. Is there any, place that sells chicken in the stadium? You could end up. I went to Intuit Dome, the new Clippers stadium in LA this season, and I was blown away by it's a big building, but it's a tech product. And you could just see that they've built it to evolve throughout the future. So let me give you a couple of examples. Number one, every seat has an audio meter, so they can measure how loud each fan is getting during different moments of the game. So they'll know, do I like three-pointers more than dunks? And because they'll be able to measure that by the extent to which I'm cheering. Every seat has a button on it so that they can put questions and polls up on the Jumbotron and fans can engage. All of that is data that can then be used to create personalized engagements. So imagine they capture this data, and at Intuit Dome, you have to have an app. You get in by you create an account on the app, and then you scan the app to get in, and then you don't use a credit card to buy anything. It's just all through the app and facial recognition. Imagine if at halftime or when you leave the game, you get a personalized podcast in the voice of your favorite player delivered to your phone, telling you about promotions for merchandise, for to buy a ticket to the next game, tell you about a message from a sponsor of the stadium. Right? These are all ways that the in-game experience can be connected to the digital on phone experience, and I think voice AI can be a really big part of that.
Okay. So, how can that be part of watching games at home? Or, you are on the go and you are just listening. So, what is the differentiating factor there?
Yeah, so I think for me, I'm a big fantasy football guy and I am a big NBA guy. So there's 82 games for every NBA team and there's 30 NBA teams. I can't watch all of them. If I had the time, I would. Uh, and for fantasy football, I've got what, 16 players on my roster. And I want to win. I'm competitive, so I do my research. And podcasts, I think, have the most robust information to help you make those decisions. But you listen to an hour or an hour and a half long podcast, and only like 6 minutes is relevant to the 16 players on my roster. And the chances of, like, if I'm deciding between starting one of two running backs, the chances that they actually analyze that question is very slim. So I think talking about, watching games or rooting for games on the go, I think using voice AI to create personalized fantasy podcasts about your roster, about your specific circumstances, or about the games that you care about but you don't necessarily have the time to watch, allows um, leagues and teams to maximize their footprint, their mind share with consumers by creating bite-sized snippets of engagement that are actually viable to do on a daily basis. So like I can listen to my daily 2 minute Clippers update, but I can't watch all 82 games.
Absolutely. So this question I wanted to ask, how can you integrate the voice AI into the smart devices like Alexa, Google Assistants, or any new ones coming in to provide real-time updates, commentary, or interactive experiences?
Yeah, so I think, my vision is actually to allow any sports app to have the capabilities that Alexa has. So what we've done is we've trained our audio models to speak the language of sports. So what does that mean? We've trained them to pronounce player names properly, right? If the best three-point shooter of all time is Stephen Curry, we've got a problem, right? It's Stephen Curry, and more casually, it's Steph. So we've trained our models to create authentic content by pronouncing players' names properly, by understanding the casual speaking conventions that fans use, and we're going to integrate with it. We're a B2B platform, right? So we're going to integrate with major sports companies like ESPN, like DraftKings, like Ticketmaster, and allow them to have the same type of conversation that you would have with Alexa, but directly within their experience, within their app, using models that are tuned into the way that fans speak about sports. So, that's a big mountain to climb. I think a couple of key pillars are data, right? So having the right data structured in a format that is accessible and usable for AI, and then really high quality audio models, and of course scale, right? 123 million people watched football, NFL week one. So being able to support a massive set of concurrent conversations or consumption is really important.
Okay. So, like, when you're talking about this, how can brands and teams drive revenue through voice AI, through sponsorships, merchandise, as we were discussing, or the ticket sales? How can we
Yeah.
collaborate all those things?
So if you think about the history of marketing, right, there was traditional marketing that was sort of, we all got, pamphlets in our snail mail, like, arriving in my mailbox. Then television allowed us to have regional marketing. Then connected TV allowed us to have programmatic marketing. And what programmatic allows us to do is target personas, right? But you could have 10,000 personas, but still, let's use the football example. 123 million people watched the NFL on week one. The notion that 10,000 templates represent the nuances of that mass of people, to me, is we can do better than that. So by using voice AI to create one-to-one content where it's designed to have only one listener, it is made for Mark Antal, right? It is made for whomever the listener is. That allows us to then have one-to-one sponsorship and one-to-one marketing. So, you know, sort of the archetype of a American mid-30s football fan, uh, a lot of the podcasts I listen to, they've got razor sponsorships, right? But I don't know if we're recording on video. I have a beard. I haven't bought a razor in 15 years. It's like all of that marketing is wasted on me. But when we have one-to-one marketing, we can then provide sponsorships, provide marketing language, and actually present brands that are relevant, hyper relevant to that individual user. I think about Instagram and TikTok as two really great examples on the social media side where I don't shop anymore. Instagram tells me the things that I want. And if we can inject that into the sports experience, I think that there's a lot of power in that. And I think it's going to uplift the sponsorship side of the sports equation as well as the engagement side.
When you were talking about Instagram, TikTok, so I just want to understand about the social media as a whole. You take LinkedIn or any other platform. What role will voice AI play into that, and how it is going to, benefit users, listeners?
Yeah, well, I think that those platforms, well, what I was talking about is those platforms' ability to customize marketing materials based on your engagement on those platforms. I think that there is an opportunity for voice AI to have a large footprint on social media. So like we're creating content that goes on social that's providing yesterday we released a piece of content previewing the Sweet 16 in March Madness, right? And that's taking content that otherwise a person would have to create and, very quickly creating something that's informative and engaging for users, helping folks figure out, okay, there's 4 games on today. Some of them are late at night. Is it worth staying up for? Does it impact my bracket? Is there an interesting storyline that's worth staying up until midnight to watch? Or, if you're on the West Coast, some of them started at 5 p.m. Is it worth leaving work early to watch this game? Is it sufficiently interesting? So yeah, I think that again, there's time sensitive content, there's high value content, there's micro audiences, all of which are challenging for humans to create content at that scale, at that pace. And so social media is a great way to get content out quickly to, and also to target micro audiences because they have so much data.
And other than social media, what are the key challenges you feel, when using voice AI for fan engagement? What are the key challenges? What can come up, or what are you facing?
Yeah. So I'll answer the question 2 ways. I think for sports organizations, voice AI is very new. To use a baseball term, we're in the early innings. So it'll take some time to get adopted and for it to live up to its full potential, just like any other technology that's nascent and new. I think also the sales cycle of a lot of teams, is not the fastest in the world. So, when we think about our go-to-market, we're starting by targeting startups in the space, that have a shorter sales cycle. As far as challenges that we've faced, I think the whole point of being a startup is you find a challenge and then you figure out a way to solve it efficiently and effectively. So for us, one of those challenges is training the models to pronounce player names properly. Giannis Antetokounmpo is a tough one. But we will take on that work. We will bear that burdens and then make that available to all of these sports companies so that they can use this technology in a way that's authentic and powerful. So I think challenge and opportunity goes hand in hand, and we are excited to. You think about AI, right? There's the hardware layer, like NVIDIA building chips, and there's the infrastructure layer, like OpenAI, Anthropic. Then there's the application layer. And so for us, the hard work that we're doing is building within the sports vertical. I think that creates an opportunity for us to be a window through which, or a door through which sports organizations can walk to get AI that is tailored to the specific needs of their business and the demands of their consumer base.
Okay. A very important question is, when we are talking about AI in any form, like how, are there any privacy concerns, ethical concerns, and how it should be catered to, and, how people should look at it?
Yeah, so I think transparency is the foundation of trust. So I don't think that we should be trying to fool people into thinking that AI voices are human voices. I think in the next 18 months, we won't be able to distinguish if we're talking to a human over the phone or AI. But I think that it is incumbent upon companies using AI technology to be transparent, to say, hey, this is an AI conversation. Here's what I can do. Here are my limitations. If you want to talk to a person, here's how you get that, to happen. So yeah, I think transparency is key. And I think the social platforms do a good job of that, right? When you post, it asks you, is this AI content? on a couple of the platforms. So I think that that's critical. As far as privacy is concerned, it's the same as any company that has data on users, right? It's when a user downloads your app, when a user engages with your product, you have a responsibility to protect their data. And I don't think that that's new. I think that AI is capable of leveraging way more data than previous technologies. So, like, the risk is higher if something was to go wrong, but the burden of responsibility isn't new. It's just it's all about trust, right? And
Absolutely.
you can't have trust without transparency.
So what are the emerging trends, into this domain of voice AI? Or like, what do you see that what is happening in the next 2, 3 years? Like, how is the industry going to go into this field specifically?
Yeah, I think in 3 years, voice will be the main way that we interact with any app on our phone. I think that the power of three dimensionality is just starting to take shape. And I think that right now there is a lot of investment in call center technology. So taking old school IVR, click five to, hear this menu again, and having that be as intelligent as ChatGPT and have voices that are really good. I do call centers for most businesses as edge cases, right? You call 1-800, but something goes wrong. I think that within 3 years, the voice AI technology is going to be good enough that it will be the main way that we interact. So when I open and what we're working towards is when if we get a deal with ESPN, my goal would be for someone like me to be able to open the fantasy football app and say, what's going on with my fantasy football team this week? And it would tell me, oh man, you got three players on bye, two of them are running backs. Looks like you might need to make a trade or some waiver wire moves in order to fill your roster. Um, and have that be a conversation, right? All powered by the media that they're still creating, but allowing me to engage with that media and allowing the user to drive the media product, right? To ask, to query the data, to query the stories, to in any moment in time pick your own adventure through the lens of sports.
Okay. A last question in this is AI or voice AI overall going to replace humans in any way? Should humans be scared about it? Because these days that is a debate going on that AI is going to replace humans at many fronts. So
Yeah,
wanted to, your understanding on that.
yeah, so AI is only as good as the data it has available. So if people stop writing stories, if people stop covering sports, AI is going to not have anything new to communicate, right? So I think that the role of the human in sports is absolutely critical. I think that AI will be a tool to allow them to reach new audiences. So the example that I like to use is Mike and Mike in the Morning is a radio show that I listened to growing up. And I called in probably 100 times trying to ask my question. And I never got to ask the question. Why? Because it's a great show. Mike Greenberg and Mike Golick are great, insightful sports analysts and radio hosts. Um, what if they could answer every call? And there was a voice agent that was trained on not only their voice to sound the way that they sound, but trained on the way that Mike Greenberg thinks about the Jets and the most recent articles that they've written, all the content that they recorded in their 4 hour radio show in the morning, right? And then the thousands of fans that are sitting on hold or reaching a busy dial tone get to ask their question and get that answer transparently knowing that they're not actually talking to that radio host, but they're talking to an agent that is trained on that radio host's content and perspective. So that's how I see it working hand in hand. It allows human content creators to engage their audiences on a new scale that is just not possible in the 24-hour day. But AI doesn't have a 24-hour day.
Absolutely. That I agree. Okay. So like now we'll move on to the next segment of the podcast, that is the rapid fire round. I'll ask you a few questions. You'll have to be really quick in answering those. Okay.
Sure.
You cannot think. First one, AI in sports. Game changer or overhyped?
Underhyped.
Okay. One sports team that's using tech brilliantly.
Los Angeles Clippers.
Okay. What's the coolest AI-powered sports innovation you have seen?
Second Spectrum season ticket holder streaming experience where you can see the probability of shot make based on how far away the defender is and where the player is on the court.
Okay. Video assistant referee, love it or hate it?
Um, I think that it needs to be paired with a human, but I think that it should be used.
Okay. If AI could predict one thing perfectly in sports, what should it be?
I mean, I think that player health is the most important thing. I'd love to see fewer concussions in football. So
Absolutely.
I think, doing good by people.
Okay. Smart stadiums or virtual fan experience, which excites you more?
Smart stadiums is, sports is best when you're around other people.
Okay. AI making real-time game decisions, genius or disaster, waiting to happen.
Both. It's all up to who's using the tool and if they know how to use it.
Okay. If you had an AI coach, what sports would you train in?
Um, Football.
Okay.
I think
Name,
football is very traditional, and I think that some new ideas could be disruptive potentially.
okay. Name a sports movie that would be better with AI involved.
I think a reimagining of Moneyball would be cool.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay. Last question. If you could ask AI any sports trivia question, what would it be?
You got to ask who the GOAT is.
Nice one. Okay. Now we'll move on to the next segment. That's you'll have to answer this question into 30 seconds.
Okay.
Like, describe the future of sports with voice AI.
Every fan conversing with their favorite app, their favorite player, their favorite media person, giving the fan the control to steer the conversation and engage with sports companies the same way that they engage with their buddies by talking.
Loved it. Thank you, Mark, for the amazing podcast and your insights and joining us today.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So everyone, let's stay connected for more understanding on sports and technology. Please share this episode with your friends, families, or the people who love sports and technology. That was Mark with his insights today. Let's meet in the next episode next time. Till that, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep exploring.